My dad left me $50,000 when he died. My stepmom gave it to her precious son like it was hers to hand out. So I bought her dream home and burned the deed right in front of her. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, you're not alone. Let me tell you how I turned my pain into something unforgettable. My name's Haley Brooks. I'm 25, living in Denver, and just finished nursing school. I've been working 2 jobs, one at the hospital and one at a diner, just to keep up with rent and student loans. Life wasn't easy, but I had hope. My dad always believed in me. After my mom died, it was just the 2 of us for a long time. Then came Lana, his second wife, and everything changed. When Dad passed away from a stroke, I was shattered. He'd left me $50,000 in his will. He knew I needed it to start my life, maybe buy a car, or finally breathe a little. That money was my future. But Lana, she made sure I never saw a cent. The check was mailed to the house. I was still gathering documents and grieving. Before I could even ask about it, Lana smiled and said, "Oh, that? It's gone. I gave it to Bryce. He needs it more than you." Bryce, her son from her first marriage. A grown man who hadn't worked a day in years. Always on the couch, playing video games, talking about his business ideas while eating food he didn't pay for. She gave him my inheritance like it was some gift from me. I stood there in shock, waiting for her to say she was joking. She didn't. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't do either. Instead, I walked out of that house, my hands shaking, my heart breaking. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just walked. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment and stared at the ceiling. Everything my dad worked for, everything he left for me, had been handed over like it meant nothing. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end of the story. Not for me. And definitely not for Lana. I wasn't going to fight her in court. I didn't want to waste years of my life chasing what should have been mine. I wanted something better. Something lasting. So I stayed quiet. I smiled when I had to. I played along. But inside, I was already planning. And trust me, what came next? Lana never saw it coming. After losing my dad, I thought the worst was over. But I had no idea Lana was just getting started. The house I grew up in, the only place that ever felt like home, was supposed to be mine. My dad always told me, "One day this house will be yours. You'll raise your kids here." After Mom passed, it was our safe place. Every corner held a memory. I thought at least that part of him would stay with me. But Lana didn't care about memories. The deed was in Dad's name only, and since he hadn't updated it before he passed, she had legal control. Within weeks, she listed the house. I didn't even get a warning. One day, I came home and saw a for sale sign in the yard. My stomach dropped. When I asked her what was going on, she shrugged. "I need to move on, Haley. This place is too big for just me. It's time to let it go." Her words were cold, empty. Like none of it meant anything. 2 weeks later, I was out. She gave me a tight deadline to leave, like I was a tenant instead of her stepdaughter. I packed everything I could into my car, old photos, some clothes, a few books, and moved into a rundown studio apartment with a leaky ceiling and a view of the back alley. I cried the first night I slept there, not just because I missed my dad, but because it felt like I had lost everything. Meanwhile, Bryce, Lana's perfect golden boy, was posting Instagram stories flaunting designer shoes, a new gaming setup, and a fancy watch. All of it bought with my money. My inheritance. I watched it unfold like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I thought about confronting him, screaming, demanding the money back. But I knew it was useless. They didn't care about fairness. They never had. So I stopped reacting. I stopped replying to Lana's messages. I stopped checking Bryce's updates. I pulled back, went quiet. But I wasn't broken. In that silence, I started planning. I worked long hours, saved every dollar, and started learning. I didn't tell anyone what I was up to. I didn't post. I didn't share. I just watched and waited. Because if Lana thought she could take everything and walk away untouched, she was wrong. So wrong. I was 13 when Lana married my dad. She came into our lives smiling, with perfect hair and a voice so sweet it felt fake. But back then, I wanted so badly to believe she was good for us. Dad seemed happy again, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we could be a real family. At first, Lana acted like the perfect stepmom. She'd bake cookies, help with homework, and take me shopping like she actually cared. But it didn't take long for her mask to slip. Little things started changing. She'd buy Bryce, her son from a previous marriage, everything he asked for, while I got hand-me-downs or cheap knockoffs. She'd gush about how independent Bryce was, but call me needy for wanting help with school projects or comfort when I had a bad day. Every time something went wrong, she found a way to blame me. Once, a glass vase in the living room shattered while she was moving furniture. She looked straight at me and said, "You did this, didn't you?" Before I could even answer, she slapped me across the face. I remember standing there in shock, tears stinging my eyes, and she just walked away like nothing had happened. I told my dad. He believed me. But instead of standing up to her, he asked me to let it go. Haley, she's trying. She's not perfect. Let's just keep the peace. That was the beginning of a pattern. Lana would do something cruel, and Dad would look the other way. He wasn't a bad man, just tired. He wanted harmony more than truth, and in the end, that meant I was always the one who had to bend. For years, I kept my mouth shut. I tried to be the bigger person, like everyone always says. I swallowed my anger, tried to love her, tried to understand her, even when she clearly hated me. But every time I chose peace, I lost a piece of myself. Bryce never once faced consequences. He got suspended for cheating. Lana blamed the teacher. He stole a watch from a department store. Lana said it was a mistake. Meanwhile, I had to be perfect. No mistakes. No attitude. No drama. Now, looking back, I realize what that did to me. I spent my whole life trying to keep the peace in a war I never started. I kept shrinking myself, hoping it would make her like me, make things easier. But all it did was teach Lana that she could walk all over me. That's why the inheritance hurt so much. It wasn't just money. It was the final proof that no matter how kind, quiet, or patient I was, it would never be enough. But this time, I wasn't going to be quiet. This time, I was done playing nice. The day I moved into that tiny studio apartment, something in me shifted. I wasn't going to be the helpless girl Lana thought she'd broken. If she could play dirty, I could play smarter. I started with the basics, online classes in business and finance. At night, after double shifts at the hospital and weekends waiting tables, I'd sit on my mattress with a cheap secondhand laptop and study how money really works. Credit scores, mortgages, real estate investment. I learned it all, slowly but surely. My mind, once full of grief and anger, was now focused on one thing: winning. I cut every single luxury. No takeout, no new clothes, not even streaming subscriptions. My friends thought I was going overboard, but they didn't understand. This wasn't just about saving money. It was about taking control. Every dollar I saved was a step closer to freedom, a step closer to revenge. I read every book I could find on flipping houses, real estate laws, and negotiation. I watched videos of investors turning wrecked homes into gold mines. Something about it excited me. Real estate had been Lana's game. Now it would be mine too. I worked non-stop, building my credit, paying off every small debt I had, and setting up a savings account I treated like it held the last heir on earth. It didn't happen overnight. But slowly, steadily, my bank account grew. My confidence grew with it. 2 years in, I had enough for a down payment on a small fixer-upper on the edge of town. It was ugly, but I saw potential. I flipped it in 8 months, made a small profit, and used that to do it again, this time with a slightly better property. I stayed quiet, low profile, not drawing attention. Meanwhile, I changed too. I cut my hair short, sharp and clean. I started dressing differently, more structured, confident. I didn't smile to please anymore. I smiled when I meant it. People noticed. Co-workers treated me with more respect. Men who once overlooked me now tried too hard. But I wasn't looking for attention. I was building something Lana would never see coming. I didn't post about my wins. I didn't brag. I didn't even tell my friends the full picture. I wanted everything to stay quiet, until it wasn't. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rising, and soon I'd rise right over her. Haley never expected to feel anything but numb toward Lana anymore, but the first time she heard about the colonial-style house near Boulder, something flickered in her. She overheard it through a mutual acquaintance. Lana had fallen in love with a house in a gated community called Foxglove Heights. "It's her dream home," the woman said, not realizing the irony. "She says it's where she'll spend the rest of her life." Already planning the garden. That was all Haley needed. She drove out there herself. The neighborhood was quiet, upscale, with tree-lined streets and perfectly trimmed hedges. Then she saw it, the house. 2 stories, all white with black shutters, a wraparound porch and old stone steps. It was beautiful, no doubt. And it was everything Lana ever wanted. That made it even more perfect. Haley started digging. The property was still on the market, but the seller had dropped the price recently, twice. She made a few calls, subtly asking around. Then she found out what changed everything. The seller was in financial trouble. A pending divorce. They needed a fast close. No delays, no red tape. Haley smiled for the first time in days. She called her attorney and set up a shell company, Oak Ridge Properties LLC. She didn't want her name anywhere near this deal. It had to be invisible until it was too late. Then, through the LLC, she made a full cash offer, no contingencies, ready to close within 10 days. Just hours later, Lana submitted her own offer. But hers came with financing delays and the need to sell her current home to fund it. Too late. Haley had already sealed the deal. By the time Lana's realtor called back to negotiate, the house was off the market. The deed was signed under Oak Ridge Properties. And Lana? She was furious. Haley didn't say a word. She just waited and watched as Lana's excitement turned into confusion, then disbelief, then rage. Lana called the seller to demand an explanation, then called friends to vent. She even posted on Facebook, complaining about how the house was stolen out from under her. But Haley stayed quiet. No one suspected her. Not yet. She visited the house again after the closing. It smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. She didn't bring furniture. She had no intention of living there. This house wasn't for comfort. It was for justice. Standing in the center of the empty living room, Haley ran her fingers along the windowsill and whispered to herself, "Welcome home, Lana." But Lana would never live there. Not now. Not ever. Lana had been bragging for weeks about her future home in Foxglove Heights. She told her friends how she was redesigning the kitchen, picking out chandeliers, and planning a rose garden in the back. Everyone believed her. After all, Lana had a way of talking like she already owned things she didn't. So when she invited a few of her closest friends for a sneak peek before the final paperwork went through, they all showed up dressed to impress, holding lattes and fake smiles. But the moment they pulled into the driveway, something felt off. The front door was shut tight, and the lock wouldn't budge. Lana tried her old trick of jiggling the key and pretending it was just sticky. Nothing. She knocked, then banged. No answer. Then a car pulled into the driveway. Haley stepped out, cool and calm in a sharp blazer and black boots. She didn't say anything at first, just walked past Lana, pulled a key from her pocket, and opened the door like she belonged there. Because she did. Lana blinked, confused. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice rising. Haley turned around slowly, looking at the crowd of women behind her stepmother. "Oh," she said casually, "you must have heard. This house. It's mine now." Lana laughed too loudly. "Don't be ridiculous. My offer is already in. They're just finalizing the papers." "They finalized it," Haley said, stepping aside so they could all see the inside of the empty house. "Just not with you." Lana's mouth fell open. "You're lying." Haley held up the keys and jingled them lightly. "Bought it under Oak Ridge Properties. Cash deal. Closed last week." It took a moment for the truth to sink in. Then it hit. Lana's face twisted in disbelief, then rage. "You stole this from me," she screamed. "You little." Haley didn't flinch. "Funny," she said, voice even and low. "I was just thinking the same thing when you handed my inheritance to your jobless son." The other women stood frozen, unsure whether to step back or pretend not to be there. Lana tried to push forward, but Haley calmly stepped in the doorway, blocking her. "Oh no, you're not welcome here. You never were." Then she shut the door. The lock clicked behind her. From inside, Haley heard Lana shouting, her voice cracking, her pride unraveling. But she didn't move. She just stood there in the quiet, looking around the house Lana had wanted so badly. It felt even better than she imagined. The sky was painted with streaks of gold and purple as the sun dipped behind the mountain. In the backyard of the house Lana thought she owned, soft music played and string lights twinkled overhead. Haley had invited a few close friends, people who had supported her through the chaos, the grief, and the slow climb back up. There was laughter, the clink of glasses, and the warmth of shared silence. But tonight wasn't just about celebration. It was about closure. In the center of the yard sat a fire-safe metal bowl on a table. Haley stood beside it, holding a single sheet of paper in her hands, a printed copy of the deed to the house. The paper looked so official, so powerful. But to her, it was more than just ownership. It was a symbol of everything she'd fought through. She looked around at the friends gathered, Emily, who offered her couch when she got evicted, Luis, her coworker who taught her how to spot a bad investment, and Priya, who never let her quit when things felt too heavy. Haley held up the deed. "This house was never about real estate," she said, her voice calm but clear. "It was never about property lines or square footage. This was about reclaiming something that was stolen." Everyone went quiet, listening. My inheritance, my home, my father's memory, all ripped away by a woman who thought kindness was weakness. "But this," she glanced down at the paper, "this isn't a home. It's justice." She struck a match. The flame danced for a moment, flickering in the soft wind. Then she dropped it onto the deed. The paper curled and darkened, flames spreading quickly. The orange glow lit her face as the edges blackened and turned to ash. Her friends cheered, raising their drinks. "No tenants. No remodel. No Airbnb," Haley said as the fire burned low. "I'm letting this house sit exactly as it is. Clean. Perfect. Empty." "Why?" Emily asked, curious. Haley smiled, the kind that carried weight. "Because nothing will drive her crazier than knowing the one thing she wanted most is just sitting here, untouched, and she'll never have it." Priya nodded, impressed. "That's savage." Haley shrugged playfully. "It's peace." The fire died down, leaving only embers and a bowl of ash. They stayed outside for hours, telling stories and toasting to new beginnings. But Haley kept glancing at the quiet house behind her. Not because she loved it, not because it felt like home, but because it was hers and always would be. Even in silence, it spoke. Bryce's downfall wasn't sudden. It was slow, messy, and exactly what Haley expected. After blowing through the $50,000 meant for her, Bryce tried to act like a rising star. He started a sneaker reselling business, claiming he'd be a millionaire by 26. He rented a flashy Dodge Charger and flooded his social media with videos of hustle culture quotes, stacks of cash, and expensive shoes he never paid taxes on. But behind the filters, everything was crumbling. Haley watched quietly from a distance. She didn't like wasting energy on him, but sometimes the universe had a way of making things right without needing help. Bryce's business failed within 5 months. His inventory was overpriced, poorly sourced, and returned more often than sold. When he tried to sell fakes to a collector who knew better, it spread fast online. He got banned from major platforms and couldn't move anything. He had no savings, no backup plan, and no clue how to fix it. Then the Charger was repossessed. That same week, Bryce was caught shoplifting from a designer store in Denver. Not even high-end sneakers, just a cologne and hoodie he didn't need. The security footage went viral locally. Haley didn't seek it out, but someone sent it to her with a laughing emoji. She didn't respond. Lana, desperate to protect her precious son, drained part of her retirement to bail him out. She looked older, more brittle, when she showed up at the courthouse. Her carefully dyed hair had grown out at the roots. Her designer coat was wrinkled. The confidence she once wore like armor was gone. Word got around. Friends Lana used to brunch with stopped calling. The neighbor she gossiped with refused to meet her eyes at the grocery store. Her real estate contacts? Gone. No one wanted to be connected with the woman who handed her stepdaughter's inheritance to a now criminal. Still, Haley said nothing. No posts. No texts. No smug looks. She had no desire to dance on their downfall. She remembered all the times her father told her to take the high road, even when Lana made her feel invisible. She finally understood what that meant now. The high road wasn't about letting things slide. It was about rising so far above them that their chaos couldn't reach her anymore. Haley simply watched, quiet and unbothered, as Bryce and Lana unraveled. She was far too busy building a life they'd never touch again. It was a cold Wednesday morning when Lana showed up uninvited at Haley's apartment. Haley had just brewed a cup of coffee, ready to dive into paperwork for her next real estate deal, when the knock came. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door and saw Lana, hair unbrushed, eyes swollen, jacket hanging off her like it no longer fit, she just stood there, unmoving. Lana didn't wait for an invitation. "Please, I just need 5 minutes," she said, her voice raw. Haley didn't speak, but stepped aside just enough for Lana to enter. She didn't offer her a seat. Lana stood near the door, looking small for the first time in her life. "I messed up," she began, hands trembling. "I thought I was protecting Bryce. I didn't know things would fall apart like this. I thought," she paused, swallowing hard. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Haley." Haley tilted her head, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You didn't mean to?" she repeated slowly. "You stole from me. You gave away what my dad left me, without even telling me. Then you sold our home like it was yours to erase." "I was scared," Lana whispered. "I didn't know what I was doing. Bryce, he needed help. He's still my son. I thought he just needed a break, something to push him forward." "You gave him a launch pad," Haley replied, her voice calm. "You gave me a shove off the edge." Tears welled in Lana's eyes. "I can't sleep. I see your face every time I close mine. I drive by that house, and it feels like it's laughing at me. You got what you wanted." "No," Haley said quietly, stepping forward. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted someone to see what you did. Not just the money. Not just the house. You erased me. You treated me like I didn't matter. And you did it with a smile." Lana's lip quivered. "I'm sorry." Haley nodded slowly. "You're sorry now. Because everything's gone." She stepped to the door, holding it open. "You'll drive past that house every week. And every time you see it, I hope you remember the girl you tried to erase. I hope you understand now. I won't be invisible again." Lana hesitated, then took one last pleading look. But Haley didn't blink. She shut the door in her face. No anger. No guilt. Just finality. On the other side, Lana stood alone in the hallway, surrounded by silence that she created all by herself. Haley didn't watch her leave. She simply picked up her coffee and got back to work. 3 years later, Haley stood outside a cozy little office space with her name etched on the glass, Brooks and Bloom Realty. The sun was setting behind the Denver skyline, casting a soft gold light across the sidewalk. Inside, 2 young interns laughed over paperwork, and a single mom was signing a lease on her first safe apartment. Haley had built it from nothing. What started as a side hustle flipping houses had grown into a full-fledged real estate firm. But not just any firm. Hers focused on helping young women avoid the financial traps and manipulative tactics she had once fallen into. She ran workshops, offered free consultations, and even partnered with local shelters. She made sure her past wasn't just something she survived. it became something she transformed into purpose. She hadn't spoken to Lana in over 2 years. Last she heard, Lana had moved into a cramped apartment across town, renting instead of owning. Bryce had vanished into his own mess, last seen selling used electronics on social media, always looking for his next big break. Haley never sold the colonial-style house in Boulder. It still sat there, perfectly maintained, untouched. A gardener came by weekly to keep the lawn trimmed. The windows gleamed. The front porch stayed swept and clean, yet no one ever walked through the front door. Sometimes, Haley would drive out late at night and park across the street. She'd sit quietly in her car, watching the house under moonlight. She didn't feel anger anymore, not even pride. Just stillness. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was memory. The house wasn't a trophy. It wasn't even a punishment. It was a reminder of everything she had survived. Of the girl who once sat on the floor of a cold studio apartment, broken and grieving, and decided to rise. People often asked her if she believed in forgiveness. She'd smile gently and say, "I believe in healing." Forgiveness wasn't always possible. Not when the wounds ran deep and the apologies came too late. But healing, that was something she had chosen. Not by forgetting, not by making peace with those who hurt her, but by building a life so solid, so full, that their cruelty had no space left in it. As the night deepened, Haley turned the car key and drove away from the house, leaving it quiet and alone in the dark, just as she intended. She wasn't moving back. She was always moving forward. What about you? Do you think Haley made the right choice by walking away and building her own path, or should she have tried to make peace with Lana? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear them. And if stories like this speak to you, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell so you're always the first to know when a new one drops.